This is our general agenda that we're going to be covering today. So ultimately we'll be looking at the launch of the Clearways data. So it's fantastic we've finally got that up online for everyone to use. And obviously being open, it's freely available for anyone to use for any purpose that they see fit. And also we'll be going through the details of our innovation challenge. Today we'll also be having a question and answer session at the end. And I'd like to introduce our panel that will be joining us today. Craig Moran, who is the Chief Operating Officer for the Transport Management Centre, or TMC. We have Hilary Johnson, Director of Pinch Points and Clearways North at Roads and Maritime Services, RMS. We have Prabhakar Siva, Manager Reliability and Congestion Planning at the TMC. And from the Open Data and Innovation team, we have Micah Starkis, Director Open Data Apps and Innovation, Yvonne Lee, Manager Open Data and Innovation, and David Phillips, Open Data Enablement Lead, and myself. I'd like to hand it over to Craig Moran, Chief Operating Officer for the TMC, who's going to be talking to us about the Clearways data and about Clearways and a bit of information about the TMC itself. Over to you.
Thanks, Richard. I'll walk around a bit when I talk because I can't stand still. It's like Clearways in a way. You know, they're constantly changing, constantly moving, and there's people parking in them and people being taken away. So I'm just sort of replicating that in the movements that I do today. What I'd like to talk to you about tonight is about the data that's going to be made available for the purposes of this challenge. Also talk a bit about Clearways and how they fit into the broader management of congestion, particularly in the metropolitan Sydney area. And thirdly, I'll talk about the operational challenge, I guess, in terms of managing Clearways. And I think that's a good point to focus on for tonight, that really what we're talking about here is how we manage the operation of Clearways, how do we keep customers in the frame of keeping them informed about Clearways, and what can we do with the data that can be made available, particularly with a strong focus on customers, and how do we keep them informed. So I guess first of all, turning to the data, I don't expect you to be able to read that. If you can read that, you're doing a really good job. But the data that will be made available is sort of data we've had hidden for a long time. We have a lot of data in Transport for New South Wales about the asset, about controls that are in place around parts of the network, and clearly part of that is where we have Clearways on the existing network. So the data that's going to be made available for this challenge is related to where do Clearways exist, you know, where are they located on the road network, and what are their times of operation, because not all Clearways are the same, not all Clearways are equal. We do have a whole range of different Clearways. There's Clearways that operate during the peak period, 6 to 10 in the morning and 3 to 7 in the afternoon. We now also have Clearways that operate all day. We have Clearways that operate at weekends. And we also have special Clearways for special events, such as the City to Surf and the Running Festival in Sydney. There's Clearways that are transient sort of Clearways. They get introduced for a period of time and then they get taken away. But this data set will mainly focus on those permanent Clearways that exist across the Sydney metropolitan area. And there's actually in excess of 800 kilometres of Clearways across Sydney. It may not sound like a large number, but as Hilary said this evening, if you put them all end to end, you could drive to Melbourne with Clearways all the way. And I guess what's the primary purpose of Clearways and the primary purpose of this network? Clearways aren't necessarily there for safety. They're there to keep traffic flowing, okay? They're there to make sure that roads are kept clear during critical times such that traffic can keep moving on that network. And that's why Clearways are so important to keeping the network clear. And we need to keep these Clearways clear, for want of a better term, because they're being put there for a purpose. They're being put there to help traffic flow. They're one of a whole range of initiatives that can be implemented to help manage congestion across the network. And Clearways are done to supplement or complement all that big infrastructure that's being built. New motorways that are being built, but there's a whole pile of existing road network that's not being rebuilt. We're trying to manage how people park on those particular parts of the network. And if they do park there, what can we do about it? How can we move them? So I think the whole focus here is about making that data available in terms of where Clearways actually exist and their times of operation, and how can we use that data to deal with some of the challenges that we'll go into this evening. Now, rather than talking about the definition of what a clearway is, I'll let you read that for yourself. I'd like to talk about what some of the operational challenges are with clearways, because I come from the Transport Management Centre. Our role is primarily focused around the real-time proactive management of the transport network, including roads, including interfacing with rail, interfacing with buses, interfacing with ferries and light rail. So the role's quite significant. But in terms of clearways, it's a very manual process that we deal with at the moment. Our partners in Roads and Maritime Services put up signs, they maintain those signs, they put new signs in to help inform customers about clearways, but then we have to operationally manage it. And what that actually means is that we are totally reliant on customers and partners, such as the police, to tell us that someone's parked in a clearway. We have no other way of finding out that someone's parked in a clearway. So we're totally reliant on a phone call coming into the Transport Management Centre to tell us that someone's on a clearway. Then we have to make another phone call. We then have to ring a tow truck operator to say, hey, there's a vehicle parked in this clearway, can you go and remove it? So off they go, and then they make another phone call back to us to tell us that they've found the vehicle, what its registration is, and we verify that, and then there's another conversation that's made over the phone again at the end of that process for them to tell us where they've taken that vehicle. And so it's quite a manual process at the moment that takes a lot of time, takes a lot of resource for people dealing with those phone calls, takes a lot of resource in people manually entering that information into our existing data systems to capture that. And we at the moment tow around 250 vehicles per week from Clearways. So it's not a trivial task. And one way to look at this is that it's avoidable congestion that's occurring on the network. You know, if that vehicle wasn't there in the first place, we wouldn't have to tow them away. We wouldn't have to charge them a fee. You know, we tow them away and we charge those customers a fee as well. We charge them $199 for the pleasure of having towed their vehicle away. And if the police get there before us, they get another $263 fine at the same time. So customers aren't necessarily really thankful for us towing their vehicles away. They get a little bit peeved. They don't know where their vehicle is. We're sending them bills in the mail for providing them a service, and those other customers are getting irritated because those customers that are driving on the road network are getting irritated because why didn't you know about that vehicle? Why didn't you get it away sooner? Why haven't you let people know better that these clearways are in place and not to park there? So I think there's it's actually a really simple piece of data that we're making available. Where are clearways located and what's the time of operation? But I think there's a whole pile of things that this challenge is sort of going to the heart of how can we keep the customer at the centre of what we're doing in terms of keeping them informed about clearways, notifying them about their vehicle. I'll try not to go into the problem space too much. And also there's an efficiency for us in government. You know, it costs a lot of money at the end of the day to have resources to deal with those phone calls, to have tow trucks on call that go out there and take vehicles away. So there's an efficiency saving for government, and there's also a communication or a benefit to the customer that they didn't have to get towed away in the first place and didn't have to pay a bill for that particular exercise. So I think what I'd just like to highlight is that that's the data that's going to be made available, where clearways are, what the time of operations are. Clearways are a critical part of managing congestion in the metropolitan area of Sydney. That's all the way from Penrith through to the eastern suburbs, from Hornsby down to Sutherland. So it's quite a large area. And also there's a significant number of challenges we have with a manual process. How can we move from a manual process to a more digital process, and how we deal with some of these things, both in terms of the customer side and the efficiencies on an operational side. I think that's enough from me, and I'll hand back over. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Craig. Well, now you know all about the TMC and the processes surrounding Clearways. I'm hopefully starting to spark some ideas amongst you now as to what potential solutions you could be creating, what sort of little gaps that you might find there that you might have a solution for. So off now onto the Innovation Challenge. I want to give you a little bit of background as to our team and why we do this. So At the Open Data Innovation team, we run innovation challenges, we run hackathons, and ultimately the purpose for all these is to, in order to improve the customer service, to improve the better outcomes for our customers, and to create products or accelerate the development of products in that digital space. So that's the reason why we have these challenges. And it's great to be able to look out to the community, our developer community, and companies that in the area that are able to provide solutions to us in a timely fashion. We've had some really great results in the past. Recently, we've just launched 2 boating apps through our Boating Companion Innovation Challenge at the Sydney International Boat Show. We also launched apps for the Learner Driver logbook. So if you've done an original paper logbook back in the day, then of course these days you've got a selection of 3 apps now to choose from to actually do that digitally. And there's plenty of other really good examples that we have in the past where we've used these innovation challenge mechanisms to really spark innovation and be able to actually get products in the hands of customers much earlier than what we would have. And another thing too is that it's obviously very good for government to be able to do that. It means that government themselves are actually creating the solutions themselves and actually leveraging the talents that we have here in this room, and of course beyond here as well. So over to the problem statements for the Clearways Innovation Challenge. The first one, how can we improve the driver's awareness of clearway restrictions? Ultimately, any cars parked in clearways during operating times, as Craig mentioned, and in transit lanes and bus lanes, can contribute to and actually cause congestion. Standard clearways times are becoming more complex, as Craig mentioned about the special clearways times that are currently available as well, and in addition to the standard times that they have displayed as well. What we want to know is how can we prevent drivers from parking and of course leaving their vehicles. That includes the start and the end of clearways operating times in these clearway zones. So that's the first problem statement for you to think about. The second is how can we improve how the TMC is notified of stationary vehicles in clearways, transit lanes or bus lanes. And as you heard, it's a very manual process at the moment. TMC works very closely with government agencies and service providers to constantly monitor and maximise the safety and efficiency of the road network. And of course the TMC is notified generally through a phone call to the TMC itself as to the fact that there is a vehicle parked in a clearway zone or a transit lane or a bus stop. So what we want to know is how can the TMC be notified faster and more efficiently when vehicles are parked illegally in clearways. The TMC also checks the vehicle registration in their drive system to ensure that the car is not involved in a crime as well, at which point the tow truck contractor is notified and authorised, if it hasn't been involved in a crime, then they are then notified to authorise to tow the vehicle to the nearest possible legal on-street parking spot. If it has been involved in a crime, I believe is to leave it as put, and the police will come in and have a look at that naughty car. The next is how can we advise the driver of the location of their towed vehicle? So obviously drivers don't know who to contact. Well, often they don't when they can't find their vehicle. On the back of Clearways signs, I believe that some or all of them have a number, or at least
all the new ones.
All the new ones have a number to contact. If the vehicle has been towed, then the TMC is aware, of course, of where the vehicle is parked. The TMC always knows where it is. But of course, you being the driver may have just thought that someone has swiped your car. So once you've overcome that realisation that potentially your car has been stolen, you realise that you could have actually parked in a clearway. As I mentioned, they are towed to the nearest legal spot, and the location is logged with the TMC. As Craig had mentioned too, they get not only do they get the thrill of having their car potentially stolen by a tow truck, they also have parking fines and towing fees incurred by the driver as well. So we're really looking at ways in which how that process can be streamlined, how it can be improved, and how the driver can be alerted far quicker where the vehicle is. And of course, even before that, we would like them to know to get their vehicle out of there in the first place. That would obviously be the priority there. This is our timeline as to where we are and the process for the Innovation Challenge. So we're sort of stuck around here at the moment. So we have launched the data on our Open Data Hub, and applications are now available, now open, so you can now put in your application for the Innovation Challenge. On the 14th of October, applications will be closing. On the 24th of October, where the finalists for pitch day will be notified. So that is a shortlisting process. So not everyone will be invited to pitch to pitch their potential idea, their potential solution. And then on the 7th of November, we'll be having our pitch event. And normally they take, the pitch events are around about 5 minutes. So the pitch is about 5 minutes, and there'll be 5 minutes for questions thereafter. That's the format that we have, and you will be pitching in front of a panel as well, so a panel of judges. And then from that, we take on board what the panel had advised through that process, and then we have a judging and selection process from there. And then from there, we select potentially a number of incubatees to move forward. For this particular challenge, there is $50,000 in seed funding, but that is a seed funding pool. So that will be dependent on exactly how many incubatees that we actually have through the program. So we'll be deciding that once we see what you guys have on offer. And then ultimately what we'd like to do is start the incubation process in early December. Now, our incubation process is not like a traditional startup incubation. We won't be taking you through how to build your brand or how to do marketing. It's very much a co-designed effort. So we assist you in terms of the development of the product to ensure that it meets Transport for New South Wales requirements, to ensure that it's the best possible solution for our customers. If it's a customer-facing one, if it's an internal system that gets created, then obviously we need to run through with our staff, and to ensure that the various teams and the stakeholders internally have been engaged to ensure that the product is ready to go. So we're looking towards a launch of products in April of 2019. Another thing I should mention too is that one of the outcomes of going through this process is actually to have an app that has been endorsed, for example, isn't endorsed, but an endorsed product by Transport for New South Wales. So we only have a very few select products that have gone through the process, and then they're officially recognised as endorsed by Transport for New South Wales. So that is great from a marketing point of view, and also we're able to provide our marketing cloud behind the products too when they launch. For more information, head to bit.ly / Clearways Challenge. That will take you to our website that has all the information there. We'll be putting up any extra FAQs that we've had through here as well, so just to let you know. We'll also be putting up the video, and from there too you'll be able to go to the application form. I'd like to call upon our panel to come up here and join us. Craig Moran, Hilary Johnson, Prabhakar Siva, Micah Starkis, Johan Lee, David Phillips. I'm already here. Grab a seat. So our first lot, for our Q&A, the first lot of questions have actually come directly from our Open Data Forum. So these are from people who aren't able to make it tonight but still wanted to ask a question. At the end of this process, I would suggest for you, if you do have any questions, to actually post them on the forum. So don't feel as though you're closed off for asking any further questions. It doesn't end here. You can feel free to ask them on the forum, and we'll get someone to ensure that we'll answer to the best of our ability. That's the Open Data Forum website there, opendataforum.transport.newsouthwales.gov.au. Very good. Micah, you've lost your calling. South Century intuitively. So questions for the Open Data Forum. Does Transport for New South Wales make any attempt to call or SMS the mobile number For example, question 1 on the licence form of the registered vehicle owner before towing. I feel like Tony Barber actually is just like a quiz.
I'll take that one.
I'll take that one, okay. Yes. Great.
The answer to that's quite simple. No.
Okay. Very good. Would Transport for New South Wales be willing to use their customer database to send notifications on behalf of an app?
I think in relation to that question, customer databases are wrapped in privacy considerations, and they're paramount for us to make sure that we protect people's privacy. So in that instance, I would say it's highly unlikely that we would be prepared to do that.
Thank you, Graham. If not, would Transport for New South Wales be willing to include an opt-in checkbox for tow notifications on future vehicle registration forms?
I think the option of an opt-in sort of solution is something that would be worthy of consideration. Obviously, we'd have to contemplate what does that mean, particularly for RMS's registration and licensing system at the end of the day in terms of its ability to support push notifications. But I think something that gave customers choice to opt into something is certainly something that we'd be more open to than something where we were sort of breaching people's privacy.
But just to be fair, like that'd be a big ask, to be honest. So I don't want to sort of misguide anyone. That'd be a big ask, and you know, and we've got to focus on inclusion as well. So it doesn't sort of help us if only people that opt in would be serviced. So don't take it as any. You know, I'd suggest that'd be a big ask.
Well, airlines do it.
What's that?
You can opt in for an airline to notify you when your flight is late.
Yeah,
So
no, absolutely. But we'd be contemplating though. We'd still have to have the same process we're trying to tackle now for everyone that didn't opt in. Like it's not, we can't sort of half do it.
Does TFNSW have an API to provide details of where individual vehicles are towed?
We do maintain in the TNC system a record of where vehicles have been towed to. Is there an API for that? No, not at this point in time.
If not, is there a possibility to request that tow truck operators enter this into an app?
It is something that is a possibility, and there has been some discussions. I think I'm answering a question that's to come. Not that I've seen the questions before, but there has been some consideration already given to the ability of tow truck operators to be able to enter into an app where a vehicle's been taken to, but nothing's been landed in that space. There's been conversation, but nothing landed.
Next, what is the average and maximum distance that a vehicle has been towed to reach the nearest parking spot?
That is a really, really good question. I won't give you an answer to that. The answer is probably 37. But it varies significantly depending where the vehicle's being towed from. You know, some locations it could be just 100 metres. We took it round the corner and there was a parking spot where we could put it. In other locations, it could be a number of kilometres away before a tow truck operator can actually find a legal parking space where the vehicle can be left. So it can vary significantly, but I think what you'll generally find in the western parts of Sydney, it is probably closer, it's a shorter distance. In the eastern parts of Sydney, where there's a lot more restrictions, there's very limited on-street parking, it can be quite a significant distance where vehicles are towed to. So that's an answer without answering the question.
Very good, very good. Career in politics. How many Clearways signs currently contain the TMC number to call?
Well, I'm confidently advised by Hillary that all the new Clearways that have been installed across Sydney over the last 3 years or so.
Since 2013.
Since 2013. They're the ones that they're yellow signs. They actually have the number on the back of the signs, but all the Clearways that predated that are the ones with the white signs. Very few of those will have the phone number on the back. So it's a bit sporadic, it's a bit hit and miss, I think is the best way to answer that.
And would TFNSW be willing to add a QR code to Clearways signs? For example, a sticker on the back of each sign to make it easy for people who can't find their car to look up information.
This person's giving away their ideas.
Certainly something we wouldn't be opposed to.
Yep. Okay. May we know how, this is one for me, but I'll read it. May we know how the seed funding pools have been split for previous challenges? I don't need to know the exact dollars and to which recipient. Normally they tend to be split equally, generally. It's a general thumb. I'm not saying that it's going to be like that, but generally, which is what the question was, it's split equally. Or the other thing is that we say up front exactly how much it's going to be, so, if there's not a pool. May we know the common excuses are for drivers who park in Clearways at Clearways times?
We don't necessarily know the common excuses that. Sorry, Hillary.
We've seen quite a lot of them.
We've seen a lot of them, but you know, because a lot of that goes to the State Debt Recovery Office, where people are contesting the fine that they've got. But quite often, the call is people saying, didn't see the sign, okay, wasn't aware that it was a clearway, or they've parked in a location and the clearway may not have come into operation for another 30 minutes or 60 minutes or something. So they, at the time that they parked, they weren't aware that a clearway was coming into operation. So, and they've gone off and transacted whatever business they're transacting and forgotten that their vehicle might be parked somewhere that becomes a clearway at a point in time. Is that pretty consistent with your understanding?
Pretty much, I guess the overnight ones as well as the other big ones. So people parking there in an evening, leaving their car somewhere overnight, and 6 a.m. clearway starting the next morning is the other big one that we tend to get as well.
There has been some anecdotal evidence, and this is more for entertainment in fact. There has been some anecdotal evidence, particularly in the eastern suburbs, when we run operations like City to Surf, where we put in special event clearways. Quite often people park in clearways because $199 is a pretty good price to pay for someone else to find them a parking space. So that has happened on occasion.
I believe, Micah, you've experienced that firsthand?
Yeah, thanks for giving that away.
And Hillary, do you have some favourite excuses or ones that are...
Look, we've had new clearways going in. I've had people running down the street in their pyjamas to move their cars for me. I've had the whole kit and caboodle, so it is an interesting experience. Certainly, I guess, lack of awareness, confusing signs is the other really big one, where you've got multiple different parking restrictions applying at different times of the day. And also different times on either side of the road is the other one that sometimes catches people out. So certainly those kind of...
There's no excuse that'll get you over the line.
It's not for me to decide. State Debt Recovery has that lovely
Okay, very good.
So,
very good.
We expect 100% compliance.
Absolutely, absolutely. Does our submission need to address all the problem statements or any of the problem statements? I can understand that addressing all of them will be looked upon favourably, but can submission addressing only one or two be eligible to reach pitch day stage?
I think these are all valid problem statements, so it really depends on the solution. They're individual problem statements that need to be solved, so no, you don't need to answer all of them.
You don't get extra marks by answering all three or addressing all three. I mean, ultimately it's going to be about the solution and what you propose. If that touches on one or two, or it touches on all three, then it doesn't really matter. It's really about that. 12. Can you share with us any existing solutions, including non-digital ones, that already address some of the problem statements?
Phone calls, but I think I've sort of touched on that. Like I said before, there has been some consideration to allowing tow truck operators to have access to an app to record where they've taken a vehicle to, but as I said, that hasn't been landed. It's only been a point of discussion.
And you've probably covered a fair bit of this previously, Craig, but how does the current system work, as in how does the information flow between tow truck contractor, TMC and the car owner, driver?
I think, yes, I did cover that very much the interaction that occurs between the tow truck operator and the TMC is by phone. All that total transaction is phone both ways. The transaction with the customer is really, again, by phone. When finally a customer realises that their vehicle's been towed from a clearway, ringing the TMC to find out where it is. So all those transactions to date are done over the phone.
Very good, thank you. And now we have questions from the floor. There's a microphone there too. The microphone is mainly for the audio of the recording, so if you could use it, that would be great, and that we can hear you okay.
Hello. I would just like to know, are we just looking at app as a solution or some hardware, some out of the box, other than the app, is what the solution is, what we're looking for.
No, it's not an app. I guess like we probably conceived to get our head in the right space. There's some sort of interface that someone's going to interact with, but we're quite open to hear what ideas are out there.
And on the pitch day, does it need to be a working prototype or just an idea how this works?
No, it doesn't need to be working prototype.
What's the difference on Clearways between state roads and local roads, local government roads?
Yeah. Predominantly, nearly every Clearways on a state managed road.
Yep.
There are a very few number of exceptions to that. And also those special event Clearways that I talked about,
Yep.
they can go across local government roads as well. But the majority of Clearways are on the state managed roads.
Okay, so does that information sync with the information that is provided on the spreadsheet that you showed?
Yep.
Okay, so that's just updated every day or?
Well, the special event Clearways for local roads,
Yeah.
it's not included there, but all the state road information is there. Plus, as the new Clearways roll in, we will update the data.
Right, okay, so there shouldn't be any lag between the information. So, okay.
No,
Information is provided in advance of a Clearway change on the network. So where we're expanding the Clearways network, that information is provided through to the central system in advance of the change.
Yep.
And it's generally an extension of hours usually,
Yep.
and that's what's updated to the system.
because our operators need to be aware of the Hillary's new Clearways when they come into play. So that's in the data set that ultimately is available.
Yeah, that's
I'm just wondering, do we have any plans of changing the Clearway sign to the other international Clearway sign? Like the international ones?
Not at this time. So our Clearway signs are in accordance with the Australian standard for signposting in Australia. So certainly I guess that my understanding is that there is no plan to change that.
Cool.
And it is in accordance with the Australian standard.
I think the only thing that changed in signposting is since 2013, all the new ones that Hillary has installed have they're yellow, fluoro yellow, sorry, really just to try and increase their visibility. So again, it's a very analog solution to a problem. Sorry, that was critical.
Cool. Yes.
I was looking at your data and I noticed that it's all link based, so it's not XY location based. So are you providing the spatial data behind the Clearways data? So we can use it in the app?
Well, it's all link based, as you correctly pointed. At this point in time, that's the base data that we have.
It is actually available as a shape file. So DLS or any other GIS software can read it spatially.
It's probably also
worth
noting as well, it's based on the carriageway direction. So Clearways can operate at different times on the different carriageways in each direction. So that spatial data is also based on direction as well.
So it's always a full link?
No, it's not necessarily. No.
So there's an attribute with a direction rather than don't rely on the spatial data in that regard, but the attribute is more accurate.
It got published on the Open Data Hub today, so feel free to log on there and check it out.
I'll have a look.
Download it and provide any feedback.
Is there any coordination of parking and parking times with the Clearway information? So when you talk about street parking, and people can park on Clearways at a certain time, and then after certain times they can't. So that information, is that stored anywhere where it says, okay, this is parking at this time and this is not parking at this time, or is it just Clearways?
This data set is just Clearways.
Sure.
the other data which you're talking about is like, is it 2-hour parking, or is it no stopping, or whatever the case may be. It'd be somewhere in the bowels of an asset management system, so there's a lot more work to sort of try and extract that. So that's why we're focusing down on Clearways. And the reason for focusing down on Clearways is very much Clearways and their linkage to helping manage congestion, and Clearways are the only locations where we can currently legally tow someone away. If someone overstays in a 2-hour parking zone, there's no towing, and it's a local government enforcement issue. The state really only gets involved in Clearways and removing vehicles that are illegally parked during Clearway
No, I
operating
understand
hours.
that. And the question was really more directed at trying to encourage people to download a load app to actually use it. So if they had an app that gave them an alert and said, well, listen, you can park here until this time, you set an alarm, and then basically when it becomes Clearway, they get an alarm and they go, oh, I better run off and make changes. And that's really the reasons why, because I don't know that I can see just a singular application that's going to encourage people to go and download it.
Okay.
And that's the reason. But they will download it if there is some benefit to them. And that's where the parking information comes in. So if I'm running around the city and I'm looking for a parking, and it says, oh, you can park between here and here, and I say, yeah, fantastic. And I will download an app like that. Whereas I wouldn't download an app just for the sake of Clearways.
So on the Open Data Hub, there's already off-street parking in the city, like in the city area.
So there is some of that there.
There's some of the data is already available on Open Data Hub.
But solving general parking availability across all roads, all levels of government, that's not this innovation challenge, but it is a bigger challenge.
No, I understand that, and this is why I'm saying that it's not necessarily because the other problem that I see, this is user behaviour, is that we're now starting to get what I call app pollution. So app pollution is when you get all these applications on your phone and you stop looking at the applications because there's too many on your phone and they stop downloading this stuff. And this is why I think I don't know that it's just as simple as saying, okay, well, I'll create an app to do this, which we can do. It's not difficult.
I think the subtlety is that our focus with this challenge is how can this data be leveraged to help keep Clearways clear, as distinct from here's a data set that can help someone find a parking space. So I think it's a nuance in terms of what we're focused on.
No, I understand that. Okay.
This opportunity is wrapped in innovation. Like we're having this innovation challenge because there is no easy path that we can come up with by ourselves. So we're looking after some new thinking. And I'll stress it again, like we're not necessarily looking for an app. Everyone automatically just thinks app apps solve everything. That's not necessarily the solution.
Having said that, if it's a huge infrastructure cost for Transport for New South Wales or RMS, it's probably going to be eliminated because it just can't be done. Like it's not within our remit to do that. So.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I mean, non-app solutions are not difficult either. I mean, you can put LED lights, or you can put LED on the signs as well, and display, so they kind of blink and catch people's attention, and like almost like a warning sign, like a traffic light. They're not expensive solutions; they're just standard IoT. But I was just thinking more along the lines of a complete solution.
Oh, sorry,
you can ask a question.
I think it was have you also considered publishing a data set of historical tow movements? So instead of just the average and the where people illegally parked, where they towed to, etc. So we can do some analysis on how big the problem is and where it is.
Our first question would be if that data set exists.
Yes,
so
that data set exists.
It exists in a format
So let's take this as a question and we'll respond to it.
The reason I asked is because in the introduction, you said everything, all the phone calls are made and information is put into databases.
Yeah.
So you could probably extract it from databases too.
Yeah, we do. We have a system where we log everything, but it's probably in a free text field or something.
You can manipulate it to get specific location data out there. So if you're actually looking for a specific spot, you could potentially get that data out. Whether it's all usable as an entire data set, it requires a lot of manual
It's a,
work.
Let us take it as an open
but
question.
as a reverse engineering, if you look at a lot of these new clearways and external clearways have gone in, it could be that one of the attributes could be those, something similar to a heat map scenario where bulk of the breaches happens, and that information may have been also considered as part of the Hillary solution, that the clearways.
So I've got a question over there and over there. I'm also conscious of the time, so we'll probably have these two questions and we'll see how we go.
I'll be really quick. Can you give us an idea of the size of the problem? How many cars are getting towed on a daily basis?
I can tell you how many on average. We charge the order of 250 vehicles per week. Is the current order of magnitude, but then that escalates when we have a special event. So I think recently when there was the Sydney Running Festival, the marathon, I think that day we towed, I think it was close to 300 or something on that particular day. So, but on average, before this, I got to do a quick analysis over the last few weeks, and it's been in the order of 250 per week that we've towed away. And if you factor that up, that's 250 vehicles, and it takes in the order of 40 minutes by the time we find out about it and we get rid of it. So 250 by 40, losing a lane, there is a lot of cost to the community in terms of congestion associated with that.
You mentioned earlier that the tow truck operators are basically operating on demand, or you have them in reserve. Do they operate from a depot, or are they loitering in areas where they think something's going to occur?
We have a mix. We have some that are specifically in locations, problem locations around Sydney. There's others that we have on call. So we have some that are located on site and some that are on call. But our process at the moment is that the call from us is to the tow truck company, not to the individual driver. So the transaction at the moment is with the tow truck company, even though they might have one of their drivers located on a particular part of the network. So it's a mix of roving and on-call tow trucks. And actually, a number of the notifications we get about people parking clearways are from those roving tow trucks who have come across a vehicle because it's in their own interest, I guess, to get someone.
I suspect this is probably going to be a no, but do any of the companies keep any telematics data with their tow trucks?
The answer would be don't know. That I'm sure they'd have records where they've got it in the format that you're talking. Possibly not, I suspect.
One final question.
Good evening, Dean Rance from Gardner. Just with regards to the distribution of clearways, you mentioned that there was kind of a disparity between the east and the west. Just from an operational and a process perspective, if a vehicle is towed from, say, the eastern suburbs where there's a lot of parking restrictions, can it only be towed to an area where there's no parking restrictions? Like, can it be put into a 1 hour space, for example?
Yes, it can. It can be towed to any legal parking space. So it can be towed to a 1 hour parking area, but it can't be towed and left in a bus zone or a no stopping zone or a no standing zone, but it certainly can be taken to a restricted parking area. Yeah. Because in a lot of parts of the city, that's all you'll find.
And not a paid parking zone?
No.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for all your questions. As I mentioned earlier, if you have any further questions, feel free to post them on the Open Data Forum, and we'll ensure that they get answered in a timely fashion. So thank you very much. Thank our panel for joining us here today. The knowledge of the TMC there to really find out exactly what happens, and yeah, hopefully it's really opened your eyes as to the process and how you can improve that. So look, thank you very much for coming along. As I said, feel free to have a white tea on the way out.